it missed the mark. I mean, we were relieved. I think I was relieved she didn't come out and say the stuff that our London mayor, Sadiq, has been saying. Sadiq has said, you know, we stand united. London is the safest city on the planet, maybe, that we carry on as normal. He's still saying the same old stuff, even as London Bridge has fallen down on his watch. But at least Theresa May came out and said, enough is enough. What she hasn't done, what she didn't do, is tell us what we need to hear. And that is that things are going to change completely, that tomorrow 3,000 people on the watch list are going to be rounded up. We need to hear that 650 jihadis that return to the UK are going to be incarcerated and deported. And we need to hear that Saudi-backed mosques and extreme hate preachers and imams within those mosques are also going to be shut down and deported. That's what regular British people want to hear, what I want to hear. And it is not enough to say we will win against terror, because if this is terror losing, then victory is meaningless, because this is horrible.
Katie, you're right. I mean, Sadiq Khan did not mention radical Islamic terrorism. He spoke as usual. Theresa May did say we need to have uncomfortable, embarrassing conversations because there's too much tolerance of extremism, referring to the Muslim community. If the mayor of London, himself a Muslim, is unwilling to start that conversation, how is it going to start?
It is not going to start. We need to have much more than uncomfortable conversations. You know, we were told after the last attack just a few days ago by the head of UK's anti-terrorism unit. He said, look, we've rounded up the individuals responsible. Go out and enjoy yourselves. Well, you know what? Last night, that's exactly what people were doing. They were out in restaurants. They were out in bars. And a man from New Zealand was stabbed through the face, is now in a coma in hospital. An Australian lady had her throat slashed. Others were stabbed repeatedly with a 12-inch knife-bladed weapon. You know, our mayor here, Sadiq Khan, was sworn in on the Quran. He will not call this as Islamic extremism. He will not be honest about the problem we face. And until you can be honest about your problem, you have no hope of dealing with it. I can tell you, people are forlorn. You know, people say we are not cowed. We are cowed. We are broken. Regular families are forlorn that we are broken Britain. It is time for British people to stand up and demand action.
Yeah, we've got to get over the political correctness. I totally agree with you there. We heard that from President Trump in his tweet just a few moments ago. We had you on the show on Friday, Katie, talking about climate change. I mean, that's what we thought we were going to wake up and talk about today. That has been the focus where you are over in Europe, that for many people, that is the #1 issue for them. And here we are once again waking up to a horrific terror attack.
It's unbelievable. For us, you know, climate change is way, way down the back of the queue. I mean, Trump did the right thing. He showed true leadership in exposing that agreement for the fraud that it was. But for most of us today, it's about calling your loved ones, checking they're safe. I've had texts from my parents asking me to stay out of London today. I've had texts from my own children asking when I'll be home. And I've also heard conversations from a lot of people talking with their partners about how they get out of London, how they will not come near London. So contrary to the messaging that this is a safe city, a safe country, that is not how people here feel. They fear for their lives, they fear for their children's lives, and we have to step up and we need to start incarcerating, deporting, repeating until we clean this country up.
So that's what, I mean, talk about the nuts and bolts of this. Nigel Farage on the show a short time ago, bringing up the word internment, bringing up the specter here in the United States of internment camps, Japanese internment camps. You're mentioning deportation and rounding up and mass incarceration. What would that look like? I mean, do you think that Theresa May, do you think that the British government would actually do that?
I don't think they've got the stomach to do that. I don't think they've got the political will to do that. I also see how they pander still relentlessly to these preachers who are on the wrong side of this argument, people who are against the prevent strategy for counter-terrorism, people like Cage, who speak out always in defence of Islam and how great it is, kind of Islamic preachers who speak out about the fact that what we need to be worried about is Islamophobia. We're not worried about that. We do need need internment camps. Before, I would have bought the idea that, no, this gets more people radicalised. You know, that's not the solution. But we've gone beyond the tipping point. I tell you, this country cannot take another attack. What we actually needed to hear from Theresa May today when she walked out of number 10 was never again. That's the words we need to hear to have faith in this country, because I tell you, looking at my email, even liberal left individuals are emailing me to say, I can't tell my friends, but we have got this chronically wrong. I don't know what we're going to do about this country. Well, it's a really upsetting state of affairs.
We hear a lot about moderate Muslims. In practice, we simply don't see them. All the moderate Muslims I know are ex-Muslims, or they haven't been to Friday prayers for months or even years. London has just elected a so-called moderate Muslim mayor, Sadiq Khan, who is praised as a moderate, but many have been wondering just how moderate he really is. Khan has banned sexy underwear advertisements from the underground, which is like our subway, our metro. It's one of those other weird cases in which you sort of see feminists and Islam working in tandem, like a sort of unholy alliance. It's very weird. Does he want to make the underground more Sharia compliant? Or is that just a happy circumstance of pandering to feminists? Well, if the outcome looks the same, what's the difference? Sadiq Khan's met with a lot of shady people in his life, and this is also the mayor who is happy. This is the mayor of London. The mayor of London is perfectly happy to show up to segregated rallies where the women have to stand at the back and cover their heads. And he says nothing about it. There's absolutely nothing about it. In one of the great cities of the West, one of the most important, possibly the most important city in the world, women are being forced to sit at the back. We're having segregated public spaces again. And this has crept up on us out of nowhere. I don't want the same thing to happen to the US. This is a mayor who says, by the way, that part and parcel of living in a big city is terrorism.
President Trump has been in a pitched battle with the mayor of London, apparently, and this is not a supremely smart thing from President Trump. The reason I say that is not because I think he's wrong about Sadiq Khan. I think Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, is just a turd. I think he's an awful mayor. I think he's made room for radical Islam to rise in his city. I think that he's done a terrible job of promulgating Western values. But that said, in the middle of a terror attack, President Trump decided that it would be a good time to attack Khan, not on the fact that Khan's policies had actually been really negative and bad, but on the fact that Khan had called for calm, which was weird. So it's, you know, that was not, I thought, the world's greatest move by Trump. But the media have jumped on this because, again, there's a general tendency out there on the right to celebrate every time Trump says something that's politically incorrect without regard to whether it's helpful or not. And I think that is still a key question. Is it helpful when Trump says things, or is it not helpful? I'm more interested in helpful versus not helpful than I am in emotionally satisfying versus non-emotionally satisfying. If I want emotional satisfaction, that's why I have a wife, that's why I have a kid, that's why I have 2 kids, and that is why most people have a dog. If you want emotional satisfaction, find people you love and be emotionally satisfied by them. You're not going to find emotional satisfaction in a president saying things, at least not longer than the next 5 minutes. What you actually need is efficiency, efficacy, a president who's able to promulgate a message. So the left has jumped on the fact that Trump attacked Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, for no real reason. Again, there are plenty of good reasons to attack Sadiq Khan, who is a garbage mayor and a garbage politician and a bad representative of reform, moderate Islam. Lots of reasons to attack him. That's not why Trump attacked him. And so the media have jumped on that to attempt to create this wedge between Britain and the United States, particularly because there's a big British election that's coming up in the next week. So CNN's Jim Acosta asked at the White House press conference yesterday if Trump was attacking Khan because Khan was Muslim.
Is it a travel ban?
Look, I don't think the president cares what you call it, whether you call it a ban, whether you call it a restriction. He cares that we call it national security and that we take steps to protect the people of this country. It's real simple. Everybody wants to get into the labels and the semantics of it, but the bottom line is he's trying to protect the citizens of this country. The danger is extremely clear. The law is very clear, and the need for this executive order is very clear, and the president's priority in protecting the people is very clear. Full stop.
And let me ask you to follow up on what John was asking about with respect to the mayor of London. There are going to be folks who are going to ask the question, was the president attacking the mayor of London because he's Muslim?
Not at all. And I think to suggest something like that is utterly ridiculous.
And she's right. That's not why Trump was attacking him. Trump was attacking him because he saw something on Fox and Friends and got mad, and so he decided to attack him. That's really the reason. But now Sadiq Khan is using the attack from Trump as a reason to drive a wedge. And again, this is just in time for the British election. So the London mayor, according to The Guardian, the London mayor, Sadiq Khan, has called on the British government to cancel a planned state visit by President Trump after being criticized in 2 tweets by the U.S. president. Trump initially criticized Khan for his response to the London Bridge terrorist attack, though in doing so he misquoted London's mayor. Khan's office pointed out Trump's error later, but the president responded by accusing London's mayor of making a pathetic excuse. Khan said Trump was wrong about many things and said his state visit should not go ahead. He said, I don't think we should roll out the red carpet to the president of the USA in the circumstances where his policies go against everything we stand for. Now, the reason that this matters is not because it matters if Trump says bad things about Sadiq Khan. The reason is because this is one case where rhetoric comes into conflict with goals. So if you are President Trump, you would much, much rather have Theresa May, the Tory leader, the conservative leader in Britain, at the top of the government with a major conservative majority than have Jeremy Corbyn, who's an insane person, okay? Jeremy Corbyn is legitimately a crazy human being. And yet Jeremy Corbyn is now running neck and neck with Theresa May. The last thing you want to do is make life tough for Theresa May. It's a big mistake. It's really foolish. You know, but that's exactly what's happening. There's an op-ed today in, I think it's the New York Times, in which there's somebody who is a guy named, who is this? This is Roger Cohen, who I've never heard of before. But Roger Cohen is apparently a columnist for the New York Times, and he's writing about the election. And here is what he writes. And this is, I think, unfortunately, a common sentiment in Europe. It doesn't mean they're right. It means that they're stupid and suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. But Trump should know that, and he'd be smart to downplay all of this. Here's what the column says, quote, for a long time, I could not bring myself to write about the British election. Trump coddling, self-important, flip-flopping Theresa May, ensconced at 10 Downing Street without ever being elected prime minister, was going to sweep to her hard Brexit victory and take the country down her little England rabbit hole. There were more important things to think about, like the end of the American century in 2017, 100 years after the Bolshevik Revolution. A boorish clown named Donald Trump brought down the curtain. In Britain, anyway, there was no story. The June 8th vote was a formality. The Labour Party was in meltdown, having exited the Blairite middle ground for leftist orthodoxy under Jeremy Corbyn. The British, their ludicrous vote to keep the EU gradually sinking in, had morphed into sheep. May would get her mandate to do her worst with Boris Johnson, a foreign secretary who long since forsook any claim to be taken seriously, cheering her on. Then came 2 unspeakable terrorist attacks, one in Manchester and one in London. Of course, Trump tried to make cheap political capital from the blood on London streets. He quoted London's mayor Sadiq Khan out of context in a flurry of tweets aimed at buttressing the case for his bigotry. And then he goes on, this crazy columnist, and this is an amazing column, because here's what he comes to, okay? Quote, elections take place in the real world. They often involve unpleasant choices. I dislike Corbyn's anti-Americanism, his long flirtation with Hamas, his coteries' clueless leftover Marxism and anti-Zionism, his NATO bashing, his unworkable tax and spend promises. He's of that awful Cold War left that actually believed Soviet Moscow was probably not as bad as Washington. Still, Corbyn would not do May's shameful Trump love thing. Can you understand what's happening here? There's a counter-Trump movement that is now rising in Europe. It's why Emmanuel Macron was trying to out-handshake Trump when he went to Brussels. It is why the prime ministers of the Nordic countries took a picture mocking Trump by putting their hand on a soccer ball. It is why Jeremy Corbyn, in part, is rising in the polls as a reaction to the relationship between Theresa May and Trump. Trump is wildly less popular in Europe than he is here, and Trump should know that. Instead, by polarizing with his tweets, I don't know what benefit there is to this. It is funny. There's I'm trying to remember who it was who tweeted out this morning that Trump's Twitter is just the greatest thing ever. Trump himself tweeted it out. So Trump himself tweeted out this morning that the fake news MSM wants him to stop tweeting because he's speaking directly to the people. Okay, that is just a lie. The media love nothing better than when Trump tweets. It is their favorite thing in the world when Trump tweets because it gives them something to cover. I mean, Jake Tapper is right. He tweets, fact check, MSM eats up his tweets like Skittles. It's White House advisors, lawyers, and Trump supporters who want him to stop tweeting. Again, the reason that I point this out is because there's a tweet from Chris Barron, who's a big supporter of President Trump's, and he tweets, Trump's use of social media is pure genius. The media chases every squirrel he releases. Maybe the media should get off Twitter. And so I tweeted back, please name the policy priorities advanced thanks to Trump's Twitter use as president. Okay, as distinguished from Trump's Twitter use during the campaign. During the campaign, campaigning is not being president. Obama, very good at campaigning, terrible president. Trump, good at campaigning. Apparently not that great at effectuating policy. And the reason this matters is because this actually has ramifications for foreign policy. We've already gotten a leftist elected in South Korea who's adversarial to American interests in South Korea, largely out of backlash to Trump. Now we are about to get Jeremy Corbyn, who's a nutcase Marxist, anti-Semitic piece of crap, elected to the prime ministership of Great Britain because Trump feels the need to pick fights with random politicians in London. How is this effective? How is this good? So before we all celebrate, ooh, he's a bull in a china shop and he's breaking things and yay! Okay, why don't we think about maybe the things that he's breaking? We might need those things, like Theresa May. We might need that thing. The conservative prime minister the conservative president and prime minister in South Korea. We might have needed that guy. Not everything is worth breaking. Perceptions are worth breaking. That's great. But if it comes along with also destroying the policies that would allow us to actually finish those perceptions once and for all, then it's a mistake. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.
President